You think power comes from muscle, speed, or even technique? No. Real power is something you can't see. It's something that breaks a man long before the fight even starts. I don't win by hitting harder or moving faster. I win because I make my opponent fight himself. I plant a thought, just one, that grows like a shadow in his mind. It's quiet, almost invisible, but it consumes him. By the time he faces me, he's already defeated. You can't train to resist it. You can't fight what you don't see. Want to know how I do it? Stick with me, and I'll show you the secret to breaking anyone without throwing a single punch. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but for me, they were much more than that. My eyes became a weapon, a tool to break my opponent's spirit before the fight even began. You might think a fight starts when the first punch is thrown, but that's not true. It starts the moment you make eye contact. Most fighters fear eye contact because they think it will reveal their weakness. They look away, hoping to protect their vulnerability. I did the opposite. I trained myself to look directly into my opponent's eyes, calm, focused, and unflinching. I didn't just glance, I locked my gaze with purpose. Why? Because fear thrives on uncertainty. When someone avoids your eyes, they're telling you they're unsure, maybe even scared. I knew this, so I made my gaze steady and unwavering. I didn't need to glare or appear angry. I just looked, confidently, as if I already knew the outcome. It wasn't aggressive. It was calm, almost peaceful. But it sent a powerful message. I'm not afraid of you. I'm ready. Imagine standing across from someone who looks at you like that, not with rage, but with absolute certainty. It's like facing a storm that doesn't move, no matter how hard you push. My opponents couldn't handle it. They expected tension, anger, maybe even fear. But they didn't expect calm. That calmness, my calmness, broke their spirit before the fight even began. You see, when you look into the eyes of a man who doesn't flinch, it makes you question yourself. My opponents would start doubting their own preparation. Why is he so calm? Am I missing something? Is he stronger than I thought? That little seed of doubt was all I needed. I didn't just fight with my fists. I fought with my mind, and my gaze was the first strike. You can apply this too. The next time you face a challenge or a confrontation, don't let fear make you look away. Hold your ground. Let your confidence speak without words. Your gaze is more than just a look. It's a statement of your belief in yourself, even if your heart is racing. Practice keeping your eyes steady. Practice looking straight into challenges as if they don't scare you, because soon enough they won't. This isn't just about fighting. It's about facing life head-on. Whether it's an interview, a tough conversation, or a test of your strength, let your eyes declare your resilience. When you master your gaze, fear retreats. It's not about being the toughest. It's about being unbreakable in your presence. Your calm, your focus, your unwavering eyes, that's your silent victory. Before I ever stepped into the ring, the battle had already started. Not with punches, not with kicks, but with presence. You see, most fighters come into a match looking fierce, shoulders tensed, breathing heavy, trying to look like a storm about to explode. They show aggression, hoping to intimidate. But I did something different. I didn't wear my rage on my face. I didn't pace back and forth like a caged animal. I was calm like the ocean before a tidal wave. You might wonder why. Why stay calm when everything around you is electric with tension? Because calmness itself is a weapon. Calmness doesn't mean weakness or lack of intensity. It means control. It means mastery over your emotions. My calmness wasn't passive. It was calculated. I learned that the calm before the storm is more terrifying than the storm itself because it's unpredictable. Imagine this. You're about to face someone known for their power and speed, someone with a reputation for being fierce and unyielding. You prepare yourself mentally, thinking they will come at you like a tornado. But when you look at them, they're just standing there, quiet, breathing steady, eyes locked onto yours, completely composed. No flexing, no shouting, no signs of fear, just calm, unwavering stillness. That's how I made my opponents feel. They came in expecting chaos, loud energy, explosive movements. They wanted to see signs of doubt or desperation. Instead, they saw me, standing firm, at ease, almost as if the fight didn't concern me. This wasn't arrogance, it was discipline. It was the result of countless hours training not just my body, but my mind. I knew that if I could control my inner storm, nothing outside could shake me. Calmness is disarming because it forces people to confront their own anxiety. My opponents expected tension, but I gave them tranquility. And that contradiction made them uneasy. In their minds, they questioned why I wasn't reacting the way they expected. Was I too confident? Did I know something they didn't? Was I so prepared that their aggression didn't bother me at all? These questions started chipping away at their own confidence. One of the greatest strategies in combat is to disrupt your opponent's rhythm before they even move. And that's what calmness did. It set a pace that wasn't rushed or frantic. It forced them to adjust, to rethink their approach. If they came at me recklessly, they'd hit a wall of precision and control. If they held back to analyze, they'd find no weakness to exploit. Calmness gave me the advantage because it didn't match their expectations. It left them guessing, and that uncertainty is where doubt begins. But staying calm is not easy. You can't just tell yourself to relax and expect it to work. It takes practice. It takes conditioning your mind to remain steady, even when your heart is pounding and adrenaline is pumping through your veins. I practice this every day. Whether I was training alone or preparing for a fight, I focused on controlling my breath, staying aware of my thoughts, and refusing to let external chaos dictate my state of mind. In life, people will try to shake you. They'll provoke you, taunt you, and push your buttons. But if you can remain calm, not just pretend to be calm, but genuinely feel it, they lose their power over you. Think about the most composed person in the room. They're not easily flustered. They don't rush to react. They take in the situation, process it, and respond with intention. That's power. Calmness doesn't mean being passive or indifferent. It means staying rooted when the world around you tries to uproot you. It's not about ignoring fear. It's about acknowledging it without letting it control you. When I smiled before a fight, it wasn't to mock my opponent. It was to remind myself that I had nothing to fear because I was prepared. I had trained my body, sharpened my mind, and faced my doubts long before stepping into that ring. You can train yourself to stay calm too. Practice it in small moments. When someone insults you, breathe instead of reacting. When a challenge arises, pause instead of panicking. When tension builds, let it pass through you without holding on to it. The more you practice calmness, the more natural it becomes. When you master your calm, you become unpredictable. People can't read you. They don't know how to provoke you because nothing seems to shake you. This doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means you're in control. You dictate how you react, not the situation. That's how you win, not just in fights, but in life. You become a storm in waiting, quiet and steady until the moment to strike arrives. And when that moment comes, your calmness becomes the foundation for your power, because you're not wasting energy on unnecessary emotions. You're not burning yourself out with anger or fear. You're preserving your strength, holding it like a coiled spring, ready to release it with precision. So the next time you face a challenge, don't rush. Don't let the tension consume you. Stay calm. Breathe deeply. Remember that the calm before the storm isn't weakness. It's the sign of a mind that refuses to be controlled. It's the mark of someone who has conquered themselves before conquering anyone else. That's how you win. That's how you break your opponent. Not just with force, but with the quiet, unbreakable power of calm.
When people talk about fighting, they usually think about strength, speed, or technique. But they rarely think about unpredictability. You see, most fighters have a style, a way of moving, attacking, and defending that becomes their signature. It's comfortable, familiar, and reliable. But the problem with being predictable is that your opponent can study you, learn your patterns, and prepare for you. That's why I never wanted to be predictable. I wanted to be like water, adaptable, flowing, impossible to grasp.
Being unpredictable doesn't mean being chaotic. It means being in control of your chaos. Most people confuse unpredictability with randomness. They think it's just doing things without a plan, but that's not true. Unpredictability is a strategy, a way to make your opponent feel uncertain and uneasy. I didn't just move differently for the sake of it. I moved in ways that broke their rhythm, challenged their assumptions, and forced them to think instead of react. Imagine this. You're about to fight someone who always uses the same moves. You've seen their fights, you know their tricks, and you've prepared for them. But when you step into the ring, everything changes. They switch stances mid-fight. They throw feints instead of direct attacks. Their movements are fluid, constantly shifting. Suddenly, all your preparation feels useless. That's how I fought. I made my opponents feel like they were facing someone new every second. This wasn't just physical. It was mental. I trained myself to think differently, to never settle into one mindset or one routine. Most fighters get comfortable with what works, and that comfort makes them predictable. I refused to fall into that trap. In training, I would practice techniques that didn't necessarily match my style just to break my own habits. I would switch from fast-paced strikes to slow, deliberate movements without warning. I trained not just to fight, but to think dynamically. People often ask me why I switch stances so frequently, or why I used moves from different martial arts styles. It wasn't just to look impressive. It was to keep my opponents guessing. When they thought I was about to kick, I would punch. When they expected me to move forward, I would move back. This constant unpredictability didn't just confuse them, it drained their confidence. They couldn't set a rhythm, couldn't find a pattern, and that uncertainty made them hesitant. Hesitation is the enemy of a fighter. The moment you hesitate, your opponent has already won half the battle. When my opponents hesitated, I didn't give them time to recover. I attacked, not just with strikes, but with energy, relentless, flowing energy that seemed to come from every direction. They couldn't anticipate my next move because I didn't let them. I controlled the pace, and they struggled to catch up. To master unpredictability, you have to be willing to break your own rules. That means not getting stuck in routines. It means training your mind to think creatively, not just repeating the same drills day after day. I would spar with partners who used completely different styles from mine just to force myself to adapt. I knew that if I only trained with people who moved like me, I would become rigid, fixed in one way of fighting. I needed to constantly break my own habits. It wasn't just in fighting that I applied this principle. In life, too, I embraced the unexpected. When people thought I would take the traditional path, I forged my own way. When they thought they understood my philosophy, I introduced new ideas. I didn't want to be defined by one thing or one way of thinking. I wanted to be free, unbound by expectations. Sometimes unpredictability means taking risks. It means trying new techniques, even if they might fail at first. But failure is just another way to learn. I didn't fear making mistakes because I knew that being too careful would make me predictable. I embraced failure as part of growth. The key was to learn from it and use it to evolve. Even outside the ring, I stayed unpredictable. In my movies, in my teachings, in my philosophy. I never settled for one identity. I fused martial arts styles, blended Eastern and Western philosophies, and refused to be labeled as just one thing. This kept people interested, curious, and always wondering what I would do next. People often asked me how to become unpredictable. I told them it starts with breaking your own routine. If you always train the same way, change it. If you always think the same way, question it. Be curious about different perspectives, different techniques, different ways of expressing yourself. Learn from various sources and don't be afraid to mix what you learn. In a fight, this mindset gave me an advantage because my opponents didn't know what to expect. They couldn't predict whether I would attack high or low, move left or right, strike or feint. I made them think too much. And in fighting, thinking too much means you're not reacting fast enough. When their minds hesitated, my movements flowed. There's a freedom in being unpredictable. It means you're not confined to one identity, one path, or one style. It means you can adapt to whatever comes your way. And when you're adaptable, you're resilient. You don't break when things don't go your way because you're used to changing your approach. You're not afraid to explore new possibilities. Being unpredictable also means being yourself, not what others expect you to be. Don't conform just because it's easier or because people tell you to. Be willing to evolve, to change, to surprise even yourself. When you live with that mindset, you're not just a fighter. You're a force that can't be tamed. So don't be afraid to break the pattern. Whether in a fight, in your career, or in your relationships, don't let yourself become predictable. Stay curious. Stay adaptable. Stay free. When you can master the unexpected, you'll find that life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance, flowing, ever-changing, and impossible to pin down. Be like water. Don't just move. Adapt. Don't just react. Create. And when people think they've figured you out, transform again. That's how you stay ahead, not just in fighting, but in everything you do. The world may expect you to be one way, but the true warrior knows that mastery lies in being unpredictable. Silence. In a world that never stops talking, silence can be uncomfortable. People fear it, avoid it, fill it with noise just to make it go away. But I learned that silence is not empty. Silence is powerful. Silence speaks when words fail. And in a fight, whether it's in the ring or in life, mastering silence can be your most potent weapon. Most fighters try to intimidate each other with words before the fight even starts. They shout, taunt, and hype themselves up, trying to make their opponent doubt. They think that if they can sound more confident, they'll be more confident. But I knew better. I knew that words were just noise, and noise fades. When I faced an opponent, I didn't waste my energy trying to sound tough. I didn't bark back or raise my voice. I stayed quiet, calm, and composed. I let my silence do the talking. You see, silence unnerves people. It makes them uncomfortable because they can't read it. When someone yells at you and you don't react, they start to wonder why. Is it confidence? Is it indifference? Are you hiding something? That uncertainty messes with their mind. Silence creates a void that your opponent tries to fill. They'll say more, shout louder, trying to get a reaction. The more they talk, the more they reveal their own insecurities. It's like they're trying to convince themselves that they're in control. But I didn't need to convince anyone. I knew who I was, and I knew what I was capable of. My silence was a reflection of that inner calm, unshakable, unbreakable. I remember one fight where my opponent spent days trash-talking before we even stepped into the ring. Interviews, press conferences. He made sure everyone knew how he was going to beat me. I stayed quiet. I didn't give him what he wanted. I saw it in his eyes. Frustration. My silence was like a wall he couldn't break. The more he ranted, the more it became clear that he was the one who needed reassurance, not me. On the day of the fight, I didn't say a word. I walked into the ring, looked him in the eyes, and stood there, calm, grounded. His energy was all over the place, and I could feel his tension. The crowd had heard his words, but now they were seeing my silence. They could feel the difference. The fight hadn't even started, and he was already losing. Not because of what I did, but because of what I didn't do. Silence is not weakness. It's not backing down. It's a choice to stay in control. In a chaotic world, the person who can remain quiet holds power. Think about it. When someone yells at you, they expect you to yell back. If you don't, it throws them off. They don't know what to do with your calm. They don't know how to break through that wall of silence. It's not just in fighting. In life, too, people will try to provoke you. They'll push your buttons, insult you, or challenge you just to see you react. They want to control your emotions. But if you can master silence, you take that control back. You don't let their words dictate your response. You choose when to speak and when to hold back. Learning to be comfortable with silence isn't easy. It's human nature to respond, to defend yourself, to explain. But sometimes, silence says everything you need to say. It tells the other person that you are not bothered, that their attempts to break you are futile. It shows that you are rooted, unmoved by their noise. Silence also gives you time to think. When you're not rushing to respond, you can actually hear what's being said. You can analyze the situation, see through the emotions, and find the truth buried beneath the noise. That's why I didn't react when people tried to provoke me. I listened. I observed. I let them reveal themselves while I remained centered. During training, I practiced silence too. I would meditate, focusing on my breath, letting thoughts come and go without reacting to them. This practice trained my mind to stay calm, even when emotions flared up. It taught me that I didn't have to respond to every thought or feeling. I could let them pass without getting caught up. This mental discipline translated into my fighting style. I didn't react out of fear or anger. I acted with intention. There's a story I remember about an old martial arts master. A young, brash fighter came to challenge him. The young man shouted insults, trying to provoke the master into a fight. But the master just stood there, quiet and smiling. After a while, the young fighter gave up and left, feeling humiliated. A student asked the master why he didn't fight. The master replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The student answered, "To the one who offered it." The master smiled and said, "Exactly. Anger is a gift I choose not to accept." That's how I viewed trash talk and provocations, as gifts I didn't need to accept. Why carry someone else's negativity when I could remain light and unburdened? Why let their noise fill my mind when I could choose peace? That's why I stayed silent, not because I was afraid or passive, but because I chose not to carry unnecessary weight. Sometimes people mistake silence for weakness. They think that if you don't respond, it means you're scared or powerless. But real power doesn't need to announce itself. Real strength doesn't have to prove anything. My silence wasn't a retreat. It was a stance, a deliberate choice to preserve my energy and focus. In life, remember this: not every battle needs a response. Not every insult deserves a reply. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful answer. It shows that you are not easily manipulated, that your peace is not for sale. Next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Take a breath. Let your silence be your response. Watch how it unsettles them. They expect noise. Give them calm. They expect anger. Give them peace. When you master the art of silence, you become untouchable, a force that doesn't crumble under pressure. You will find that silence can build respect. People will see that you're not easily provoked, not swayed by petty arguments. They'll know that when you do speak, it's intentional, meaningful, and worth listening to. Practice silence in small moments. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a coworker tries to stir up drama, when life doesn't go your way, resist the urge to react. Let your calm presence be your answer. Over time, you'll find that silence doesn't just protect your peace. It enhances your power. Be comfortable with silence. Let it ground you, strengthen you, and speak for you when words are not needed. In a world that shouts, your quiet strength will echo louder than any noise. That's how you become a warrior of the mind, calm, resilient, and unbreakable. People often think that being invincible means being physically unbeatable. Someone so strong, so skilled, that no one can defeat them. But that's not true. Invincibility starts in the mind. It's not just about what your body can do. It's about what your presence says to others. You see, before you can convince the world you're unbreakable, you have to convince yourself. You have to project invincibility not just with your strength, but with your entire being. When I entered the ring, I didn't just carry my physical training with me. I carried an aura, a presence that said, I am already victorious. My opponents could feel it. Even before the first strike, they sensed that I wasn't doubting myself. And that belief in my own strength made them doubt theirs. Projecting invincibility isn't about arrogance or bravado. It's about embodying confidence so completely that others can't help but feel it. Think about it. When you meet someone who walks into a room with their head held high, shoulders relaxed, and eyes forward, you instantly notice them. They don't have to say anything. Their presence announces itself. Now imagine that in a fighting context. Your opponent expects you to show signs of fear or hesitation. They're looking for a crack, a hint of uncertainty. But when they see you standing tall, calm, and composed, it disrupts their mindset. They start questioning their own readiness. That's the first key, mastering your posture and your presence. When I trained, I didn't just focus on punches and kicks. I focused on how I carried myself. I made sure my body language didn't reveal my doubts. Even if I was tired or hurt, I didn't let it show. My opponents never saw me slouch, never saw me drag my feet. I projected strength at every moment. I trained myself to breathe calmly, to keep my head steady, and to never show weakness. But projecting invincibility goes beyond physical presence. It's also about the energy you give off. I didn't walk around boasting about my skills or my victories. I didn't need to. My silence, my calm, my focus, that was enough. I let my training speak for itself. Words can be challenged, but presence, that's harder to break. I remember a fight where my opponent was known for his aggressive, almost reckless style. He would charge at his opponents, overwhelm them with sheer force. Before our fight, he tried to intimidate me, talking about how he'd crush me, how I wasn't prepared for his power. I didn't react. I stood there calm and quiet, almost as if his words didn't reach me. It wasn't that I ignored him. I simply didn't allow his energy to disrupt mine. When the fight started, he came at me like a storm, wild, unpredictable, but I didn't rush to counter. I stayed grounded, moving just enough to avoid his strikes, letting his own energy work against him. The crowd could see the difference, his chaos versus my calm. As his energy started to fade, I didn't look tired. I didn't look phased. I looked unbreakable. That's when the real fight began. He realized that his usual tactics wouldn't work. That realization hit him harder than any punch I could throw. It's not just about what you do in the ring. It's how you prepare yourself mentally long before the fight. I trained not just to be strong, but to feel strong. I didn't allow myself to dwell on doubts. If I found myself questioning my abilities, I would immediately shift my focus to my strengths. I would visualize victory, not just the moment of winning, but the entire process. I saw myself moving with precision, staying calm, and dominating the fight with both skill and presence. Visualization is powerful. When you constantly see yourself succeeding, it becomes part of you. You start to believe it on a deeper level. When you believe it, others can sense it too. They may not understand why they feel uneasy around you, but it's because your energy tells them, I am not easily defeated. Another important aspect is how you handle setbacks. There were times in my training when I made mistakes, when my moves didn't work the way I intended. Instead of getting frustrated, I treated every failure as a lesson. I didn't let mistakes break my confidence. I learned from them and moved forward. If you let failures define you, you start carrying that defeat in your posture, your attitude, your energy. But if you see them as stepping stones, you become stronger, more resilient. One time, I injured my hand just weeks before a big fight. The pain was intense, and it would have been easy to let that injury get to my head. But instead of focusing on the pain, I focused on what I could still do. I worked on my footwork, my kicks, and my mental toughness. I didn't let the injury make me feel vulnerable. When fight day came, my opponent didn't even know I had been hurt. I projected the same invincibility as always, and it worked. He fought me as if I was at full strength, and that mindset played to my advantage. Projecting invincibility also means not being swayed by others' opinions. People will doubt you. They'll criticize your methods, say you're not good enough, but their opinions aren't reality. If you internalize their doubts, you lose your edge. I made a point never to let other people's skepticism take root in my mind. I listened to those I trusted, but I didn't let negativity alter my belief in myself. In life, people will try to make you feel small, weak, or unsure. They will try to find cracks in your confidence. But you have the choice to project invincibility, not by pretending to be perfect, but by refusing to be broken by challenges. Carry yourself with purpose. Walk with your head high, even when life pushes you down. Speak with calm conviction, even when others try to shout over you. When you live this way, people will notice. They will feel your strength before they see it. They may not understand it, but they will respect it. You don't need to announce your power. Let your presence speak. Let your calm, steady spirit show that you are not easily shaken. To project invincibility, you must believe it first. Train your mind to focus on your strengths, not your fears. Train your body to reflect your confidence. Let setbacks be lessons, not defeats. When you stand tall in the face of adversity, you show the world that no matter what comes your way, you will not be broken. When you make invincibility a mindset, you don't just become a fighter in the ring, you become a warrior in life, unyielding, resilient, and unstoppable. That's how you win, not just against your opponents, but against the doubts that try to tear you down. Stand firm, and the world will know. You are unbreakable. People often think power is about being loud, showing force, or dominating conversations. But real power doesn't always make noise. Real power doesn't need to shout. It just exists. It's a presence, a silent force that others can feel even before you speak or move. You don't have to declare your strength when you know who you are. When you truly understand your worth, your presence becomes your loudest statement. When I stepped into a room, I didn't need to raise my voice or prove my abilities to anyone. I didn't have to boast about my training or list my achievements. I walked in with a calm, grounded energy, and that was enough. My presence did the talking. It told people that I was confident, disciplined, and unshaken. It wasn't something I had to force. It was something I built through consistent training, both physical and mental. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to constantly prove themselves to be respected. They believe that if they don't assert their dominance, people will overlook them. But in reality, the opposite is true. The more you try to convince others of your power, the less powerful you appear. Real presence is quiet, but undeniable. It's felt rather than heard. It's like the calm before a storm, something in the air that makes you pause and take notice. I remember one particular time when I was invited to a martial arts demonstration. There were many skilled fighters there, showing off their techniques with loud, aggressive moves. The crowd was impressed by the noise, the speed, the intensity. When it was my turn, I didn't follow the same pattern. I moved with precision, almost effortlessly. My strikes were sharp but controlled, and my movements were fluid and focused. I didn't try to make a spectacle. I just let my discipline and skill show naturally. Afterward, people came up to me, not to talk about how loud or aggressive my demonstration was, but to express how captivating it felt. They said it was like watching someone who didn't need to prove anything. They could sense that I was confident without needing to flaunt it. That's when I truly understood the power of presence. It's not about being noticed. It's about being remembered. Presence isn't something you can fake. You can't just stand in a certain way or force a calm expression. It comes from within. It's built through self-knowledge, discipline, and a sense of purpose. You have to know who you are, your strengths, your flaws, your journey. Once you have that understanding, your presence becomes a reflection of your inner balance. When I trained, I didn't just focus on my body. I focused on my mind too. I meditated, practiced breathing, and learned to be still. I didn't let emotions take control of me, especially fear or anger. This inner peace created an outward calm that people could feel. Even in the heat of a fight, I didn't let the chaos around me break my focus. This mental strength became part of my presence. Sometimes people would challenge me, trying to provoke a reaction. They wanted to see me lose my composure, to prove that I wasn't as calm as I appeared. But I didn't take the bait. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. My silence, my calm stare, and my deliberate movements showed that I wasn't easily moved. The more they pushed, the more they revealed their own insecurity. They couldn't understand how I could remain so centered while they were getting worked up. The secret is to develop an unwavering sense of self. You can't be swayed by other people's opinions, insults, or provocations. When you know your value, their words don't stick. This doesn't mean you ignore criticism or feedback, but you choose what affects you. You filter out the noise and keep only what helps you grow. In a fight, this mindset is essential. My opponents expected me to react with the same aggression they did. They wanted to see me show fear or doubt, to feel more confident themselves. But I remained steady. I didn't rush in recklessly. I moved with purpose, not because I was passive, but because I was precise. When they saw that I wasn't easily provoked, they hesitated. They started questioning their own approach. One of the greatest lessons I learned was from observing nature. Have you ever seen a mountain in the middle of a storm? The wind howls, The rain beats down, but the mountain doesn't move. It doesn't react to the chaos. It remains firm, unshaken. That's how I wanted to be. A force that doesn't bend just because the situation gets tough. This kind of presence takes practice. It's not something you develop overnight. You have to consistently train your mind to stay calm under pressure. One of my favorite exercises was to practice slow, deliberate movements, even when my heart was racing. I would focus on controlling my breath, not letting adrenaline dictate my actions. This taught me that even in intense moments, I could maintain my composure. In life, people will challenge your peace. They'll try to break your calm just to feel more powerful themselves. Don't let them. Let your presence be like that mountain, rooted, firm, and resilient. Speak when necessary, but let your actions speak louder than your words. Sometimes, just being there, unwavering, is more powerful than any argument you could make. When you're comfortable with yourself, you don't need to seek validation. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. That's when your presence becomes magnetic. People will feel drawn to you, not because you're the loudest or most aggressive, but because your quiet confidence makes them question their own. They'll wonder how you can be so calm when everything else feels chaotic. When I looked at my opponents, I didn't see enemies. I saw people who were fighting their own battles, not just with me, but with themselves. I didn't hate them. I didn't fear them. I just remained centered in my own purpose. That's what presence does. It grounds you in your own reality, not someone else's expectations. Next time you enter a challenging situation, don't rush to prove yourself. Take a breath. Stand tall. Let your silence speak of your confidence. Let your calmness tell the world that you are not easily shaken. Your presence is not something you shout about. It's something you live. It's in your posture, your gaze, your stillness amid chaos. People will always have opinions, but their judgments don't define you. What defines you is how you carry yourself when the pressure is on. Be the calm center in the storm. Let your presence speak of your strength, not through noise, but through quiet, unwavering certainty. That's how you become unbreakable, not by forcing the world to see your power, but by knowing that it's already within you. Most people think that winning a fight is about sheer power or relentless speed. They believe that if they hit harder or move faster, victory is guaranteed. But that's a limited way of thinking. Real mastery isn't just about strength or speed, it's about precision. Precision is the art of doing exactly what's needed, at the exact moment it's needed, with the least amount of effort. Precision isn't just about being accurate, it's about being intentional. It's not just a physical skill, it's a mental strategy. When I trained, I didn't just practice throwing punches and kicks randomly. I focused on making every move count. It wasn't about overwhelming my opponent with a flurry of strikes. It was about finding the perfect opening and executing the perfect technique. Precision means not wasting your energy on unnecessary movements. It means knowing when to strike and when to wait, when to be aggressive and when to hold back. To master precision, I had to first master stillness. You can't be precise when your mind is scattered or your emotions are out of control. In a fight, adrenaline can make you want to rush in, throwing everything you have in the hope that something lands. But that's not how I approached combat. I trained myself to remain calm, to assess the situation, and to move only when necessary. Precision is born from patience. There was a time when I fought an opponent who was known for his explosive energy. From the moment the bell rang, he charged at me like a bull, throwing wild punches, hoping to break my defense with sheer force. I didn't react to his aggression. I moved just enough to avoid his attacks, conserving my energy while he burned through his. Every time he missed, his frustration grew. My stillness was getting to him. He was fighting against his own impatience more than against me. When I finally struck, it wasn't with a series of wild punches. It was a single, precise hit. A counterstrike that landed cleanly because I had been waiting for that exact moment. One precise hit can do more damage than a dozen reckless blows. When my opponent fell back, stunned, he realized that all his aggression had been useless against my precision. That's when I saw fear in his eyes, not because I was stronger, but because he knew I was in control. In life, people often rush into situations without thinking. They act on impulse, hoping to fix problems by doing more. But more isn't always better. Sometimes it's the one precise action that changes everything, whether it's in relationships, work, or personal goals. Precision means understanding the situation fully before acting. It means not letting your emotions cloud your judgment. During my training, I didn't just practice moves. I practiced awareness. I observed my opponents, learned their habits, their rhythms. This awareness allowed me to predict their actions, to see the gaps in their defense. Precision starts with observation. If you rush to act without understanding, you're just gambling. But when you take the time to truly see what's in front of you, you move with intention. Precision also means cutting away the unnecessary. Sometimes fighters rely on flashy moves, thinking that looking impressive will intimidate their opponent. But I knew that flashy didn't mean effective. I focused on fundamental techniques, perfecting them until they became second nature. When a move is precise, it doesn't need to be extravagant. It just needs to work. There's a story I once heard about a swordsman who could cut a single leaf falling from a tree, slicing it cleanly in half without disturbing its path. It wasn't about strength. It was about timing, awareness, and mastery of the blade. In combat, I wanted to be like that swordsman, calm, focused, and perfectly precise. Not forcing my power, but letting it flow naturally when the moment called for it. Precision is also about conserving energy. I didn't waste time on unnecessary feints or exaggerated movements. Instead, I focused on efficiency. If a single strike could end the fight, I didn't follow up with more just to look impressive. I didn't let ego dictate my actions. It's easy to get caught up in showing off, but that often leads to mistakes. I would rather land one clean hit than 10 sloppy ones. Even when training, I would slow down my movements, paying attention to every detail. I didn't rush through techniques just to complete the drill. I broke down each movement to understand it fully. Why was I stepping this way? Why was my hand positioned like that? Mastering the details made me sharper. It taught me that precision is not just about the final outcome. It's about perfecting the process. Mental precision is just as important as physical precision. In a fight, your mind can become your worst enemy. If you let your thoughts race, your actions will follow. That's why I practiced focusing on my breath, keeping my thoughts centered and calm. Before a fight, I wouldn't think about the outcome or worry about my opponent's reputation. I focused on being present, on executing my training without hesitation. This mindset of precision also helped me in life. I didn't rush to make decisions just because I felt pressured. I would take a step back, assess the situation, and choose the most effective path. Whether it was in my career, my relationships, or my personal growth, I made sure my actions had purpose. I didn't move just to move. I moved because I knew it was the right time. Precision also means being adaptable. Sometimes, despite your best plans, the situation changes. Your opponent might do something unexpected. That's when your mental flexibility becomes crucial. I didn't get stuck trying to force a technique that wasn't working. If I missed, I didn't dwell on it. I adjusted, adapted, and kept moving. Precision doesn't mean perfection. It means responding intelligently to what's in front of you. One of the most powerful aspects of precision is that it makes your presence feel unstoppable. When people see that you don't waste energy, that you move with purpose, they start to feel overwhelmed. It's not just your physical actions that affect them. It's the mental realization that they are up against someone who doesn't make mistakes. Precision becomes intimidating because it leaves no openings, no weaknesses to exploit. In your life, strive to be precise. Don't let distractions pull you in every direction. Focus on what matters and give it your full attention. When you take action, make it meaningful. Don't just react. Respond with thoughtfulness. Whether you're pursuing a goal or facing a challenge, think about the most effective way to move forward and execute it with intention. Precision is a mindset, a way of living. It's about cutting through the chaos and honing in on what truly matters. When you move with precision, both in thought and action, you become unstoppable. Not because you're the loudest or the strongest, but because every move you make has purpose. That's how you win, in the ring and in life. You don't just fight hard, you fight smart. You don't just live, you live intentionally. That's the true power of mental warfare through precision. When people talk about fighting, they usually think about the physical struggle. Punches, kicks, speed, and power. But in reality, a fight starts long before the first punch is thrown. The real battle begins in the mind. The greatest victory happens not in the ring, but in your thoughts. If you win the mental fight first, the physical one becomes almost inevitable. Most fighters spend all their energy preparing their bodies, building muscle, perfecting techniques, increasing stamina. That's important, but it's not enough. If your mind isn't prepared, it doesn't matter how strong or skilled you are. The mind controls the body. If your thoughts are weak, your body will follow. That's why I spent just as much time training my mind as I did my muscles. You see, doubt is the first enemy you face. Before you ever step into the ring, it creeps in. That small, nagging voice that questions whether you're good enough, whether you've trained enough, whether your opponent is stronger. Most people try to drown out that voice with noise, loud music, aggressive hype, anything to distract themselves from fear. But I did the opposite. I faced my doubts head on. I didn't run from them. I analyzed them. I let them surface so I could see them clearly and understand why they existed. One of the biggest lessons I learned early on is that fear itself is not the problem. It's how you respond to it. Fear is natural. It's a part of being human. What's unnatural is letting fear control your actions. I made a choice. Fear could be present, but it wouldn't take the lead. It wouldn't make decisions for me. I would acknowledge it, understand it, and then move past it. I trained myself to turn fear into fuel. Instead of letting it paralyze me, I let it sharpen my focus. Visualization played a crucial role in winning the mental fight. I didn't just visualize victory. I visualized the entire process. I saw myself walking into the ring, feeling the energy of the crowd, hearing the sound of the bell. I imagined every scenario, including the difficult ones, getting hit, feeling pain, facing a stronger opponent. I visualized how I would react, how I would maintain my composure, how I would adapt. This way, I didn't just prepare for the best-case scenario, I prepared for reality. Most fighters only picture themselves winning, landing the perfect strike, celebrating victory. But that's not enough. You have to prepare your mind for setbacks, for the unexpected. If you only envision victory, what happens when the fight doesn't go your way? If you're not mentally ready for adversity, you'll crumble at the first sign of trouble. I made sure that no matter what happened, my mind would remain steady. I remember one particular fight where I knew my opponent was stronger than me physically. On paper, he had every advantage: taller, heavier, more reach. If I let that intimidate me, I would have already lost. So I trained my mind to focus not on his strengths, but on my own. I asked myself, what can I do better than him? How can I use his strengths against him? I realized that while he was physically imposing, his movements were predictable. He relied on his size to dominate. I made a mental note to use speed and precision to counter his power. When fight day came, I didn't walk into the ring thinking about how strong he was. I walked in knowing that I had already defeated my own doubts. I had prepared my mind to see his strengths as opportunities, not threats. Sure enough, his power was impressive, but it wasn't overwhelming because I had mentally rehearsed how to handle it. By the time I started landing precise, quick strikes, his confidence began to waver. The mental fight had been won long before the physical one ended. Winning the mental fight also means controlling your emotions. Anger can be powerful, but it can also be blinding. If you let rage dictate your actions, you become predictable and reckless. I didn't allow anger to be my primary motivation. I fought with purpose, not with fury. I wanted my mind to be clear, my thoughts sharp. Controlled aggression is far more dangerous than blind rage. This mindset of winning the mental fight applies outside the ring too. In life, challenges will come: setbacks, failures, criticism. If you let these things break your spirit, you'll be constantly fighting yourself. The real battle isn't against other people or external situations. It's against your own doubts, fears, and insecurities. Once you conquer those, external challenges become manageable. One of the most powerful techniques I practiced was controlling my breathing. When stress hits, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your body prepares for fight or flight, but that state of mind isn't always useful. I trained myself to slow my breathing when tension rose, to signal to my brain that I was still in control. Deep, steady breaths calm the mind and keep your thoughts clear. In a fight, this made a huge difference. While my opponents were breathing heavily, getting anxious, I stayed relaxed, conserving my energy and maintaining focus. Sometimes, people would ask me why I didn't look nervous before a big match. It wasn't that I didn't feel pressure. I just didn't let it consume me. I knew that stress was a part of the process, but I also knew that my preparation had given me the foundation to handle it. Confidence isn't about ignoring fear. It's about knowing that you're prepared to face it. Another key to winning the mental fight is not being attached to the outcome. This might sound strange, but if you're obsessed with the result, with victory or defeat, you're more likely to panic when things go wrong. Instead, I focused on the process. I concentrated on executing my techniques well, staying aware, and adapting to the situation. If I did that, the result would take care of itself. I didn't chase victory. I allowed it to come naturally through my preparation and mindset. In life, too, this mindset is crucial. Sometimes we become so obsessed with achieving a goal that we forget to focus on the small, deliberate actions that lead to success. We worry about the finish line instead of perfecting our stride. The mental fight is about staying present, controlling your thoughts, and trusting your preparation. There's a saying, the battle is won before it's fought. This means that your mindset, your preparation, and your attitude determine the outcome long before the actual challenge begins. Whether it's in the ring or in life, don't wait until the last moment to face your fears. Prepare your mind daily. Train your thoughts to stay calm, focused, and resilient. When you train your mind to be unbreakable, no challenge can overwhelm you. You may feel fear, but it won't dictate your actions. You may face setbacks, but they won't define you. You become someone who doesn't just survive challenges, but thrives because of them. Winning the mental fight means becoming your own ally, not your own enemy. It means believing in your preparation, trusting your instincts, and staying calm under pressure. Once you've won that inner battle, the external challenges lose their power over you. That's how you become unstoppable. Not because you're immune to fear or failure, but because you've learned to control your mind and use it as a weapon. Master your mind, and the world will follow. That's the secret to not just fighting well, but living well. When you own your thoughts, you own your reality. That's how you truly win.